Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on. Roman numeral 5, item number 2, House Joint Resolution number 100. JF to the floor. Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Representative Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, forgive me. Things are moving pretty fast, and we're kind of bouncing around. It takes just a minute to go through and figure out which bill we're on. But I understand that this is the constitutional amendment to provide for a so-called transportation lockbox. And I just want to express my opposition to this proposal, mostly because I think that it is nothing more than a gimmick. We voted on this in the legislature at the end of 2015, if I recall. And the notion is that somehow we can pass a constitutional amendment that binds the legislature to not spend money on things that are dedicated to transportation. But if you know the history of this building, you know that we've tried to do this in many other respects in the past. We've passed taxes and sunsets and lockboxes and all sorts of things that never seem to come to fruition. And this is just another one of those things. I think it is nothing more than a gimmick. If we want to actually spend money appropriately where it's needed on transportation projects, then all we have to do is spend money where it's needed on transportation projects. We do not need a transportation lockbox to tell us to do that. And there is no mechanism that can tie our own hands. When I spoke on the floor a couple years ago, I likened this to my friend who was always trying to quit smoking. So he would try all kinds of things with his cigarettes. He would put the cigarettes in his car. He'd put them on the high shelf. He's going to oh, I'm not going to buy a pack of cigarettes on the way home today. But at the end of the day, when he wanted to get a cigarette, he always found a way to go get one. And that's the same thing here. This is no constitutional amendment by itself because it relies on the statutory definitions of what is transportation expenses and what is eligible for funding. And as simple as I can put it, it is a gimmick. We need to be honest with the taxpaying citizens in the state, and we need to elect people that have the courage to do the right thing, to prioritize, to spend money where it's actually needed, and to be honest with the taxpayers in the state. They deserve that, and we ought to give it to them, Mr. Chairman. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any further comments or discussions? Item number 24 on today's agenda, House Bill 6575. That's item 24, House Bill 6575. Is there a JF to the floor? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Representative Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just ask what the point of this bill is?
Of course, thank you, Representative, for the question. The point of the bill is to require each nominated candidate for President and Vice President of the United States to publicly disclose their federal income tax returns for the 3 years immediately preceding the election in order to be placed on the state's general election ballot.
Yeah, do we know if any other state makes the similar requirement?
Senator Flexer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my understanding that there are numerous similar proposals in other states to have these same sorts of requirements for access to the presidential ballot.
I understand there may be other bills pending in lots of places, but is there an existing law anywhere?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do not know if there's an existing law, but again, similar laws are being considered in a multitude of other states.
Mr. Chairman, can I also ask what exactly, back to my original question, what is the purpose of this? I mean, I understand what it does. I just don't understand why this body seems to have an interest in that. Do we even have jurisdiction over such a thing, Mr. Chairman?
Representative Flexer? I'm sorry, Representative Lesser?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Representative Sampson, I believe that Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution grants state legislatures the authority to declare the time, place, and manner of elections, and that this would be included on there as a ballot access requirement. Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the gentleman for his answer. I think that's kind of a stretch to determine that as a ballot access requirement. And I'll just say that I think that this is a blatantly political bill. I think it's a result of some sore feelings over the recent presidential election, and I think it's disgraceful that it's before us. And I'm sorry if that's upsetting anyone. I just don't see any reason when the people of the state want us to start getting along and start passing legislation to their benefit that we continually bring up bills that are just so divisive for the purpose of playing a political game. And I would have thought after today and the lengthy time between 2 p.m. when we were supposed to meet to go over these bills, that maybe some people might have said, you know what, let's calm down and figure out which bills are really appropriate to be acted upon today. And for this to be one of them is just shocking to me. I'll be voting no today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Sampson. Any further comments or discussion of the bill?